As a materials engineer, is there any way that we can get rid of some of the waste into chicken nuggets and get the children to eat them all? I'm only slightly joking. Hello, Professor Sahajwalla. How are you?
Oh, well, it's lovely to sit down and have a chat.
Yes, after your fantastic keynote. So I've got 3 questions. I suppose the first one is, for somebody like me who's not an engineer and knows maybe a little bit about green manufacturing, what are 3 key things we should know about green manufacturing?
I think of manufacturing as ultimately making a product that works, something that's useful. So, the 3 steps are, what goes in? Feedstock, raw materials, then how you make something, and then the finished item that you have made. Is it good enough? Is it to your satisfaction? So if you think about green manufacturing as a whole, you can start to question your raw materials and go, are these the most sustainable raw materials that I could be using? Are there better alternatives? So the thinking around green in the first instance is to start to even question those fundamentals and go, what if I could actually bring in those materials that end up in landfill or are just not being used at the moment, but they are still useful? What if I bring those materials into manufacturing? But then you look at your manufacturing process and go, this way of making things is actually not very efficient because it might require way too much energy. Could I be actually making something where there's no waste? Anything that's left over could be put back into production. So there you go. That's how you make stuff. And then the third thing, of course, is quality of what you've made. And you then go, well, you know what? It doesn't matter if it had waste materials going into it. The finished product that you make is green by nature, because if it does the job it's meant to do and its performance is fit for purpose, then you've achieved green manufacturing in a holistic way.
Right. And that final product is something that lasts, and when it's ready to be tipped, it can go back potentially as much as possible to the first part of it.
Spot on.
Great.
Yes.
So lots of organisations, big and small, are really thinking about, okay, what's our carbon footprint? We really have to start thinking seriously about what net zero looks like, scope 1, 2 and even 3 emissions. What do you think are some kind of early questions businesses, organisations should be asking themselves about how they, progress on this journey?
I think, the first thing when businesses are thinking about this journey, and that's exactly right, it is a journey, and we are all, sort of coming into this whole world of thinking practical solutions from our own lenses. And, you might sort of look at it and go, well, but these are my boundaries, I really can't do anything about it. One of the first things you could actually be doing is looking across the fence and going, actually, you know what? I need this kind of raw material. It's got to do this job, but who's actually got those kinds of feedstock materials that I might need? So bringing in some of those participants into your ecosystem that you might have never thought about. That's kind of important, because I guess otherwise you're probably going to be missing out on those opportunities to make a difference locally and regionally.
Yeah, so that's kind of creative collaboration as well, isn't
Yes,
it? And
exactly.
kind of thinking about
Indeed.
maybe some unlikely partners in this, and potentially
Absolutely.
share some information, share some knowledge.
Exactly. And I mean, in a way, the nice thing in doing that and thinking that way is what you're doing is you're actually doing a lateral integration. We used to talk about vertical integration, but also what you're saying is, if I do that, I talk to those collaborators with whom I might have never really collaborated before. I'm actually creating these new supply chains, and I'm also doing that as much as possible within the region. So I'm minimizing all of that transport cost, not to mention obviously the carbon emissions associated with transport. So you've actually got, in the longer term, the more you can start to be very innovative in the way you think about your own supply chains, you can actually create opportunities to save money, reduce your carbon footprint, and really, never know, you might be creating new jobs.
And finally, thinking about ourselves as individuals, as consumers, and from the household perspective, we know that so much needs to be done with things like energy efficiency, active transport. And from my perspective as somebody who researches how Australians feel about this, they want to do more. They want to maybe put a solar panel on and get better at waste in the home, but they're asking questions like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
So just some suggestions that you could make in relation to the household level. What can we do to kind of smooth this pathway towards net zero?
I guess, one of the first things I always ask people, if you're going to go off and do your regular purchasing, and if you are, buying the usual things, whether it's for your kids, your school supplies, or your everyday kind of items you need at home, your food items or what have you, read labeling. We've become used to reading labels because we want to look at, for example, the health benefits of a product that you want to buy. I think you can also read labels from the context of saying, so where was this made, And if it's not very clear on I guess the information that you're given, go and ask your retailer, where was it made? Because I think, to me, first and foremost, thinking and supporting local and regional jobs means you're also, enabling the capacity you have to support those local job creations, right? Because you've then said, okay, well, I'm going to use my dollar and my capacity to support some of those smaller businesses and create that market pull. So, sometimes it is about stopping, reflecting for a moment. I know we're always in a hurry and we're kind of always rushing around doing things. But I always say, if you plan the night before and think, what are the things I need? And, what are my alternatives? And of course, in an ideal world, if you can go and source, secondhand items. I remember going through one of these beautiful places at the tip, and it was literally something that was not planned, as much as I talk about plan. But at the back of my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I had, been given these beautiful flowers. I was like, mega beautiful bunch of flowers. And I was like, I don't even have a flower. So in the back of my mind, as soon as I walked into this tip shop, saw this beautiful glass piece, and I was like, aha, that's what I need. Now, it's kind of that thinking in your head that goes, okay, you know what? If I can help purchase and support not only those local jobs and local shops, but I'm actually keeping those products in circular economy running around, so that should not go to landfill. Yeah. But by buying it, and also when I'm done with it, maybe go back and donate it to your local charity shops. And I think, to me, one of the things I really love about these lovely people at my local Venice place is that every time I'll turn up, they'll kind of, I'll sit down with them and I'll tell them a bit of story about, these were, this is my daughter's for this, occasion. She had this, but she's, grown out of it. And what I love about it is it's also a great way to connect with your local community. Because I often find that if I'm in the store and I remember looking for a denim jacket, and she then said to me, actually, weren't you after a little sort of denim jacket? And she's like, I think we've got something. And I think, to me, that sense of community is absolutely beautiful. So there are so many things we could be doing in thinking about how far our dollar can go in making a difference.
Thank you so much, Professor, for your insights today and for this chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.